My mother and I were in search of a new apartment. After visiting several places, we finally found one that fit our budget. It was located on the third floor of a 15-story building. Despite the building's age, our apartment had been recently renovated. While ascending the stairs with the real estate agent to inspect the apartment, a shiver ran down my spine as I noticed the decrepit, dusty door of the apartment on the second floor, directly beneath ours. "What about that apartment?" my mother inquired, her voice echoing in the empty corridor. The agent hesitated before responding. "The owner doesn't rent it out. He's considering selling it. For now, it sits empty." The vague response from the agent momentarily gave us pause, but any lingering unease vanished as we toured the apartment we intended to rent. Both my mother and I were drawn to the space and decided to sign the agreement immediately. We settled into our new home quickly, but strange occurrences soon began to unsettle us. At odd hours, we would hear eerie noises echoing through the building, their origins unclear. Sometimes they sounded like muffled footsteps from above, while other times they seemed to emanate from the empty apartment below us, as if some unseen presence roamed its vacant rooms. The real estate agent had assured us that no one lived below, leaving us to ponder the source of these unsettling sounds. Were they merely the echoes of an old building settling into its bones, or did they hint at something more sinister lurking within its walls? Despite our attempts to rationalize them away, the noises persisted, growing louder and more insistent with each passing night. After spending the day out with my friends, I returned home and noticed the doorman's wife cleaning around the door of the empty apartment. Intrigued, I couldn't help but inquire about its occupancy. The woman shook her head and replied, "No one will move there. It will remain empty." When I pressed for more information, she hesitated before sharing a chilling tale. Once upon a time, a woman killed her husband there, and then committed suicide. The locals call it unlucky. It has remained empty for years. Even the house you live in now is often vacant because tenants tend to leave soon. Shocked by her revelation, I was interrupted by the doorman, who sternly scolded his wife for discussing such matters. I rushed home and recounted what I had just heard to my mom. She was surprised, but being more logical than me, she dismissed it as likely just a story. Despite her skepticism, she called the real estate agent to inquire about the empty apartment. As she activated the speakerphone, I could hear what they talked. The real estate agent brushed off her concerns, saying, "Oh, don't believe them. It's just an old story people made up among themselves. We've had trouble renting or selling the house because of these rumors. Even the door is unlocked, but no one dares to enter out of fear." His explanation shed light on why the house remained empty, but it didn't entirely dispel the unease lingering in the back of our minds. That night, when I went back, an irresistible feeling told me I should look at that house. Such mysterious things always attracted my attention. I knew that it wouldn't be real, but at least I would have an interesting story to tell my friends. If I tell my desire to check this house to my mom, she would definitely refuse. So, I decided to keep it secret. The next day, on my way home from school, I would go in and take a look if that door was open. This is what exactly happened the next day. After school, before going home, I stopped by at the empty apartment and gently pushed the door. The door was really open. There was no one around, so I immediately went inside and started to examine the surroundings. There was only a dusty table and chairs and a few old items in the house. They were all covered in dust. Obviously, no one had visited here for years. While exploring the house, I recorded a video on my phone to share with my classmates later. As I wandered, my eyes fell upon an old wooden box with a rich burgundy hue, placed on a small table in front of a large mirror. Intrigued, I decided to pause the recording and examine the box up close. It was weathered but beautiful, and a mischievous thought crossed my mind. What harm could it do to take it with me? After all, no one frequented this abandoned house. With that justification, I slipped the small box into my bag. As it was time to head home, I went upstairs before my mother arrived. Carefully, I cleaned the box with a wet cloth and stowed it away in my closet. I planned to show it to my friends along with the video on Monday. When my mom came home, I didn't mention anything about my day's adventures, and she didn't inquire much either. She seemed rather subdued, not in the mood for conversation. Concerned, I asked, "Mom, are you feeling unwell? Thank goodness you can rest a bit over the weekend." She brushed it off, replying, "I'm fine, just tired from the week." That night, I heard whispers again. But this time they sounded closer, almost as if they were right beside me. At times the voices were so faint that I questioned whether they were real or merely a figment of my imagination. The following evening, upon returning home, I found my mom cooking in the kitchen, and there was no sign of her illness. Delighted, I remarked, "Mom, you seem to be feeling much better today." With a smile, she replied, "Yes, dear. Come, sit down and have something to eat." She had prepared lasagna for me, which I gladly accepted and took to my room to eat. Just as I settled at my desk, my phone rang from an unknown number. Opting not to answer, I ignored the call and busied myself with other tasks. As I sat at my desk, my mom called from the kitchen. "Did you enjoy the lasagna, sweetheart?" I replied, "Mom, I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to eat yet. I keep getting calls from an unknown number." Mom responded, "Ignore it, dear." As I took a bite of lasagna, the same number called again. My mom entered my room, wearing a strange smile. She answered the phone, her smile growing more cryptic by the moment. Meanwhile, I noticed something odd about the lasagna on my plate. It was filled with soil and hair. My mom handed me the phone and said, "Sweetheart, it's your mother calling." Confused and repulsed by the strange contents of my food, I struggled to comprehend what was happening. Was this some kind of sick joke? As I answered the phone, my mom's voice echoed from it, despite her standing right in front of me, silent. Suddenly, my mom's voice filled the room, emanating from the phone in my hand, asking who she had just spoken to, her tone filled with fear. I was speechless, unable to grasp the surreal situation unfolding before me. I was frozen with fear. If it was my mom on the phone, then who was the woman standing in front of me? The next thing I knew, I woke up in a hospital bed. My mom explained that she found me unconscious in my room when she returned from work. She blamed the lasagna, thinking it might have come from an unsafe restaurant. I couldn't bring myself to say a word, but deep down, I knew I had to convince her to leave that house with all my heart. And the first thing on my agenda was to return the box I had taken to the abandoned apartment. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for similar content.